Hello, it's Friday, it's 9 o'clock. I'm Joanna Gosling. Welcome to the programme.
Opportunity to encourage people to give up smoking.
Members of the Science and Technology Committee say e-cigarettes are much less harmful than smoking, and there is no public health reason to ban vaping in public spaces. As £10 million in funding is announced to tackle drugs and violence in England's worst prisons, we have got exclusive access to a jail where prisoners get a say in the running of the jail. Some work as mentors to other inmates.
5 years have been like 5 months to me, because I've been busy. It's been a privilege to be able to leave my cell at 7:45 and finish at 4:30. In other prisons, you're locked up for 23 hours.
Oakwood has been described as an impressive institution in a recent inspection report, and this programme is the first to be allowed inside. Also, mourners have been gathering in Detroit to pay tribute to the soul singer Aretha Franklin, who's died aged 76. We'll speak to her first biographer. Hello, welcome to the programme. We are live until 11 this morning. Do you think your boss is spying on you? A new survey of more than 2,000 workers found more than half believe they are being monitored by their employer. The Trades Union Congress says employees should be consulted if they're going to be watched. So do you think your boss is taking notes on how long you spend making a cup of tea or looking at your social media to see if you're really off sick or are having an unauthorised holiday? Do get in touch on that and everything else we're talking about. Hashtag Victoria Live, and if you're emailing and you're happy for us to contact you and maybe want to take part in the programme, please include your phone number in your message, and text will be charged at the standard network rate. Our top story today, the NHS should do more to promote e-cigarettes as a way of helping people stop smoking, according to a group of MPs. The recommendations have been criticised by some public health experts who say the report relies solely on accounts by e-cig champions. But the Science and Technology Committee is calling on the government to make it easier to use e-cigarettes in public places and to consider vaping on prescription. Well, we can talk more about that right now, I think, with our correspondent. We're going to go to a correspondent in just a moment. First, this report. No, we've got a correspondent. Sorry, I'm slightly confused. We have got a reporter who can tell us more about it. Caroline, hi there. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Tell us then, is this likely to happen? How influential is this committee?
Well, it's interesting that the science...
Me at 9:30.
Thanks very much, Ben. Some comments to bring you on vaping. Phil on Twitter says it's disgusting that these MPs want to allow vaping in public places. They seem to care more about smokers than those with existing serious health conditions who will have to put up with the potentially toxic steam. Pete on email says ex-smoker and ex-e-cigarette user, and without doubt a good idea. The one thing that is annoying to passers-by and who get enveloped in the vapour is the hideous smell given off. The user may like its taste, but the smell is just overpowering and gives one a hell of a headache. When you see users walking down the road and they're vaping, it's like the old-fashioned steam train travelling down the track. And an anonymous texter: I smoked a pipe for about 20 years but gave it up after I had a mild heart attack with the aid of the vaping option. I gave it up in a day. After starting on the vape, I couldn't smoke my pipe. It tasted terrible. Since then, I've reduced my strength from 2.4 milligrams to 0.6 milligrams over 4 years. I wish my company would let me vape at my desk, although I wouldn't want to sit near those that make huge clouds. Thank you for those. Keep them coming in. Usual ways of getting in touch. Hashtag Victoria Live, and text will be charged at the standard network rate. Right now, let's catch up with the...
That Eddie Jones follows suit.
Thank you very much, Holly. See you later. Body scanners and sniffer dogs are to be brought into 10 of England's worst prisons as part of a £10 million plan to tackle drugs and violence. The government says it also wants to improve the leadership of the jails in Yorkshire, Nottinghamshire and London by sending prison governors to military-style colleges. This programme has been given exclusive access to Oakwood Prison near Wolverhampton. Operated by G4S, it used to be referred to as Jokewood. Yet an inspection report last month said it was now an impressive institution. Our Home Affairs correspondent Danny Shaw has been to find out how they have turned things around. And we're going to be speaking more about that a little bit later. Now, is your boss spying on you? We'll be discussing a new report which claims more than half of workers believe they're being monitored by their managers. Let us know what you think. Do you have those fears? First, tributes are being paid this morning to Aretha Franklin, the so-called Queen of Soul, who died of cancer yesterday, aged 76. In a moment, we will hear from the man who wrote her first biography. But first, let's take a look at what fellow musicians have been saying about her. Well, Rolling Stone magazine named Aretha Franklin the greatest singer of all time, but her fame went beyond music. In 1985, the US writer Mark Bego met and interviewed the Queen of Soul before going on to write the very first published biography of the 76-year-old.
I was just amazed. She was very gracious, very lovely. She was very real, which, you know, is something that comes through in her music. She's very real and genuine that way.
So obviously you, therefore, were faced with wanting to sort of paint a picture of this woman who really wanted to communicate through her music. But in terms of what you knew about her private life and kind of what she's come through and what we all know now, she was a mother at a very young age. She came through some difficult and challenging times to be where she ultimately got.
Absolutely. You know, it was very challenging for her to be a mother at the age of 14.
Aretha Franklin, remembering the Queen of Soul, who has died at the age of 76. And a little bit later in the programme, we will be speaking to Rosetta from the Happy Mondays to talk more about the musical legacy Aretha Franklin has left behind.
That's a summary of our latest news. Back to Joanna.
Thank you very much, Ben. Let's join Holly now for a sports update. Hey, Holly.
Hello. Well, coming up, Ben Stokes. He's back in training with England. Coach Trevor Bailey, first European title. Well, that's all the sport for now. I'll have more for you at 10 o'clock.
Thank you very much. New technology is being created to help those no longer able to speak and only able to move their eyes to communicate. The portable device has only been launched in the UK this week, and it's designed to give people who are locked in the ability to speak through blinking. Unlike other technology, there's no need to carry around a screen, with patients wearing a headband to pick up eye. Well, that was part of the promotional video for this new device that has been developed to help people who are unable to speak through loss of the communication ability. We can speak more about it now with Chris James from the Motor Neurone Disease Association, also Debbie Burrells. She was diagnosed with motor neurone disease in February and has seen her speech deteriorate since then. We're also joined from Tel Aviv by that's the same thing that Stephen Hawking had, and of course he was very well known for the way that he managed to communicate with that screen. This is going to be very different potentially. Power of speech is one of the cruel impacts of these very difficult diseases that people find themselves having to deal with. How much of a difference does technology make when someone knows that they're losing their speech, but that there is something there that's going to mean that they can keep communicating?
Well, it's tremendously important for people with motor neurone disease, MND, to have the ability to communicate. It's a devastating condition. It can progress extremely rapidly. Half of people will die within 2 years of diagnosis. So it's important that people have the right equipment for them to be able to communicate with their family, with their health professionals, so they can deal with the condition in the best way possible and have the highest quality of life as well.
Debbie, I said that you were diagnosed in February. How quickly has the disease been progressing for you? What impact?
It's quite progressive. Yeah. I was okay at first and got on with life, but gradually you start to see quite a big decline, and I'm just getting to the stage where my speech is going. So I'm very interested in this new device that we have here.
How did you feel when you were told about what you had and that you then had the knowledge of you know where you were going to go, the impact that it would have?
Well, I'm a very positive person. So that's it. That's what we've been given. Let's make the best of what we can for others around us and to make their lives as easy as well as my own.
How have your family been?
They've been brave because I laugh and enjoy life as much as we can, but it's heartbreaking.
Of course. Or how much has technology progressed? Because there was a time when people who had locked-in syndrome obviously didn't have the technology and could literally only communicate by blinking and by others looking literally at a written down alphabet or reading out an alphabet to work out what they were trying to communicate.
Right.
Progress towards a cure. How good is treatment?
Well, as you know, there is no cure for MND and there is no treatment. There is one drug that can slow the progress of MND in a small number of cases, but there is no treatment, so progress is slow. It's an extremely complex condition. The great news is, and the MND Association promotes research and funds research into MND, is that we have made huge progress over the last few years, and I think there is some hope now in the next 10 to 20 years that we'll move towards treatments for people like Debbie, so that we can really get rid of MND.
How many people are affected? How many people get to the point of needing these electronic communication devices?
Well, there are about 5,000 people in the UK with MND. I would say approximately 500 to 600 people are going to need to communicate using a tool like this.
And is it something that you said, Debbie, that you're interested in it?
Very much so. In particular, it gives you freedom to be a little bit normal. And also, my mother is hard of hearing, so 24 hours I can use that anywhere. And I think it's so much better than these big devices. At the minute, I'm writing things down, so it will help tremendously, not only myself, but everyone. As you can see, it's such a small feature compared to the big devices that are available now.
So tell us, then, you said that you're writing things down. I mean, obviously you're communicating very clearly with us right now.
When I get very tired, it goes a bit worse. And I do know eventually it will completely go. So this is a way of another means of communicating.
The closed circle of the user, the feeling of much more comfortability and more to feel more. I mean, the patient feels much more secure.
And Debbie, that's something you nodded at vigorously when you heard that. It's obviously important to you.
Yes, for everyone all round to be able to communicate. That's what we do in our everyday lives.
Chris, funding, support to make sure that people can get access to the best sort of support that they can at obviously what is a very difficult time in people's lives. What sort of help is there in this country?
Well, it's extremely important that someone, when they're diagnosed with MND, is put in touch with a speech and language therapist so that they can assess people very early on in the sort of communication aid they're going to need. That may change over time, but the important thing is that they have the appropriate communication aid and they have access to that when they need it.
Chris, Or and Debbie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, I just want to bring you some of our latest comments that we've been getting on vaping. Lots of you getting in touch on that. What do you think about it? The government, or at least a parliamentary select committee, saying that vaping should be available on the NHS. It's much, much safer than smoking, and they're also saying there are no reasons why it shouldn't be possible for people to vape in public. So, if I can get my technology working. Denise on email says smoking and vaping should be banned in all public places. I don't want to be in a public area where I have to breathe in any fumes from smoke or vape, or walk or sit in a dense cloud of vape. James on text says I used to smoke and used e-cigarettes to help me quit. I stopped smoking after 3 months and then stopped vaping after another 4. I've not even had a single craving since. Jen on text, the NHS is on its knees. There's no funding for basic drugs and surgery. They cannot fund e-cigs. And Vivian on text, I've been vaping for 8 years. I no longer cough, which I was doing while smoking. It has been amazing and I love it. Thank you for those. Do keep your comments coming in. Also want to know what you think about our next story. We're asking, do you think your boss is spying on you? Is your boss spying on you? A report from the Trades Union Congress is claiming more than half of workers believe they are currently being monitored by their bosses. It includes checking internet use and timing toilet breaks. The TUC says it's threatening to undermine morale. But should we be worried about workplace surveillance, or is this just part of living in the modern age? Well, I'm joined by Kate Bell, Head of Economic and Social Affairs at the TUC, also Edward Houghton, Head of Research for the CIPD, the professional body for HR. And also Henrik Nordmark, Head of Data Science at Profusion, a data consultancy company that has run a workplace surveillance trial. Thank you all very much for coming in. Kate, people feel like they're being spied on. Are they? How many companies are doing that sort of thing? What's the evidence?
Well, that's what we wanted to find out with this survey. So we asked 1,000 workers, and half of them told us that this type of technology was being used in their workplace. And that's really backing up what we're hearing from our member unions about the increased use of intrusive monitoring technologies at work.
So how do they know? Are employers transparent about it?
Well, not always. We also undertook some focus groups as part of this work.
A very interesting area of development around the technology that we have in the workplace now. More data, more opportunity to understand our workforce more, but also more opportunities to collect data. Organisations are doing this for a number of reasons. There are legitimate reasons around risk, health and safety. So high risk roles in the oil and gas industry, you'd expect health data will look to, so many tech organisations will look to the way that you use your time in your calendar to see if you're being productive in the way that you use your meet and their home life.
OK, we'll pick up on that. But Henrik, explain first of all what is possible and what is happening.
All right, so because Profusion is a few years back, Fitbits were kind of really new and hot. So we decided to equip our employees, those who volunteered for it, to just be tracked, kind of more like a fun sociological experiment rather than us trying to implement some kind of HR nightmares. People who had an unusually high or low heart rate seemed more likely to buy online, so we could see that they were engaged more with Amazon, like Soho, where heart rates were really elevated.
Kate, it all obviously sounds very Big Brother, and people, it sounds like the person wanting to sell you something, the person employing you, has the vested interest, and they're the ones that are getting the benefits. What are the benefits for the employees or whoever else might be being monitored?
Well, there are some sensible uses of monitoring. So you might have CCTV, for examples, like if your heart rate was being monitored at work, which a lot of people would feel quite disturbed by, particularly if they think often it can be used really as a kind of lazy management tool, which is just, a means for bosses to spy on their workers rather than to do actually anything useful in the workplace.
Are companies not absolutely obliged to be completely transparent about what they're doing?
Well, the law does say that companies should be telling people what's going on.
So the law says they should be. I mean, is the law not clearer than that?
The law is clear that yes, they should be justifying it, and they must inform people that's going on. And in unfair dismissal cases, for example, people still are using covert surveillance to attack people, and we think we need stronger protections there too.
Edward, are companies always completely responsible about the way that they use technology?
I think the way that this space is changing in technology terms is quite rapidly, and they implement it, perhaps without looking back and seeing if it's the appropriate way to use the technology. So I think about the way they implement technologies and are very clear with employees about the way that
and what about,
used.
Kate, blurring of lines? Because a lot of employees invite bosses into their lives, their private lives, by being engaged on social media. I mean, obviously that is a matter of completely free choice.
But it's not always a question of invitation. So we found a third of people thought that their bosses were looking at their social media and were happy about doing that. She didn't think it was useful.
Out there publicly. What, you know, there's nothing to stop anyone looking at it.
We do understand there's a line between our kind of private lives and our work lives. You don't expect, if you go for a drink after work, your boss to be listening in.
These technologies, we all have an online life. Our online life made up of our social life with our friends, but also more increasingly with our colleagues as well, who become our friends. And so thinking sensibly about the way you use that technology as an individual and the responsibility of the organisation to be appropriate and transparent in the way that they use the data they collect.
Kate, Edward, Henrik, thank you. Thank you very much. Before we go to the weather, I just want to bring you some more comments on vaping. LB on text, I don't think prescriptions for e-cigs should be handed out to encourage people to change smoking habits. After all, they find the money for normal cigarettes, so why should an already struggling NHS fund this ludicrous suggestion from MPs? Let them fund their own habits. Al on email, please do not forget about the non-smokers and their desire to breathe relatively clean air in public spaces. I quite often have to endure walking through a vast cloud of the vapour being breathed out by someone using an e-cigarette, and quite frankly, it's disgusting. Faye on email, does the vape affect people passively? For those that object, do you work through towns and cities with a face mask on? The pollution is more to worry about. Darren on email, millions of 14 and 15-year-olds who have never smoked now vape, adults too. Where are the studies into how addictive and dangerous it is? Well, we'll try to answer some of those questions because we are going to be talking more about it a little bit later. Do keep your thoughts coming in. Right now, let's catch up with the weather with Simon.
19 to 25. Bye-bye.
Hello, it's Friday, it's 10 o'clock, I'm Joanna Gosling. Rules around e-cigarettes should be relaxed so they can be used more widely and accepted in society. That is according to a group of MPs.
There is people to give up smoking.
Members of the Science and Technology Committee say vaping is much less harmful than normal cigarettes, and e-cigarettes should be made available on prescription to help more people quit smoking. As the government announces £10 million to improve security and conditions in England's worst prisons, we've got exclusive access to a jail where prisoners get a say in the running of it. Let's go straight over to Ben in the BBC newsroom for a summary of the day's news. Ben.
Morning, Joanna. That is a summary of our latest BBC News. More from me at 10:30.
Thank you, Ben. See you later. Keep on getting in touch with us on everything we're talking about on the programme this morning. Remember the hashtag Victoria Live, and if you're emailing and you're happy to talk with us on the show, then please do include your phone number in it. Loads of you getting in touch on vaping. I'll just read a couple of comments before we go to the sport. An anonymous texter, these poor people using vape things have them constantly in their hands. It's like they cannot put them down. Vapes should only be used outside. I don't want to inhale someone's vape mist. Kirsty on Facebook, vapors should not be encouraged and it should not become relaxed. My daughter is severely asthmatic and the vapes trigger an asthma attack when she passes them, as they smell, have a cloud of smoke and have God knows what in them. People who vape really need to think of others, as her asthma isn't visible unless she's coughing or in an attack. We're going to be talking much more about that in just a few minutes. Right now though, let's catch up with the sport with Holly.
Morning, Joanna. Well, we're past 10, Joanna.
Thank you very much, Holly. Just want to read you a comment through from Wendy on Facebook on the conversation we were just having about the new device that's been developed to help people with locked-in syndrome communicate. Wendy says, my sister has locked-in syndrome as a result of multiple sclerosis. She has been unable to communicate for the last 4 years except through blinking in response to closed questions. Of course, that presupposes we're asking the right questions in the first place. The eye control device is something about which I will be looking to get more information. I can't think of anything more important than to give her back a voice. Thank you very much, Wendy. We wish you and your sister all the very best. Now, almost 3 million people in the UK vape. But according to an influential group of MPs, the NHS should be doing more to push e-cigarettes as a tool to help people stop smoking. Their report says the government is missing an opportunity to tackle what is one of the biggest killers and the single biggest cause of cancer in the UK. The Science and Technology Committee want to see an overhaul of regulations, advertising, rules and levels of taxation on e-cigarettes. And they want limits on their strength and use in public places reviewed. It comes just days after a study suggested vaping is actually more harmful than previously thought. So who's right? Well, we can talk to Norman Lamb, Lib Dem MP and chairman of the Science and Technology Committee. Rosanna, they do actually think it's really antisocial and they don't want it out in public. So we'll go to some viewer comments in a moment.
Yeah, that's another point, and I think, you know, we just want a public debate.
A lot of people are saying they do actually think it's really antisocial and they don't want it out in public. So we'll go to some viewer comments in a moment.
Yeah, that's another point, and I think, you know, we just...
Lots of inflammatory chemicals, and it inhibits their function. And the key thing to take away from that is that if we were to take those same immune cells from smoke...
Bigger review in the States concluded there's substantial evidence. The way that is marketed as a lifestyle choice is attractive to young people. The flavours are attractive to...
I was 17. I started vaping a year ago, and the difference in my breathing and general well-being is night and day. I believe switching to vaping has saved my life, and I hope millions of others follow suit. And on that note, actually, Dave, you were smoking up to 30 a day, I think, until recently. You started smoking at the age of 16, but you stopped by switching to vaping. Out to encourage people to change smoking habits. After all, they find the money for normal cigarettes. So why should an already struggling NHS fund this ludicrous suggestion from MPs? Let people fund their own habits.
Well, just listen to the test.
How quickly this sort of new alternative to smoking has grown up, and the potential impact of it. In terms of the sort of people who are buying stuff from your store, is it people wanting to kick the habit, or are many people coming to vaping having never smoked in their lives? How quickly this sort of new alternative to smoking has grown up, and the potential impact of it. In terms of the sort of people who are buying stuff from your store, is it people wanting to kick the habit, or are many people coming to vaping having never smoked in their lives?
It's all of life.
Okay, it's been great to talk to you all. We've had a lot of you to get in, so but we've maybe not been able to discuss as much as we would have liked, but it's been lovely to have you. Thank you very much, and thank you for all of your comments. Do keep them coming in. It's obviously a subject that you're very interested in. Now, yesterday, hundreds of thousands of students across England, Wales and Northern Ireland got their A-level results, and one grandmother who was particularly proud of her grandson's achievements got in touch with this programme. Here's what Marianne wanted us and the rest of the UK to know about 18-year-old Max and how well he did. All the very best wishes. Good luck with your future, Max. Thank you both very much. Thank you for getting in touch, Marianne.
Thank you.
Thank you. Still to come, as £10 million in funding is announced to tackle drugs. Now let's join Ben for a news update.
Good morning. The NHS will be issuing refunds. That's a summary of our latest BBC News.
Thank you, Ben. Now let's catch up with the sport with Holly. Hey.
Morning, Joanna. We'll come in.
Much. See you later. £10 million plans to tackle drugs and violence in 10 of the worst prisons in England have been announced today. The prisons in Yorkshire, Nottinghamshire and London will be given money to bolster security, improve living conditions and develop new standards of leadership. This programme has been given exclusive access to one prison which has already been turned around. Oakwood, which had previously been referred to as Jokewood, holds 2,000 offenders, more than any other jail in the country. Yet an inspection report last month said it was an impressive institution. Our Home Affairs correspondent Danny Shaw went to find out why.
I do it because
mentoring schemes in prisons in Chelmsford and Doncaster. We're also joined by Mark Day from
of a hub, so prisoners can come straight out of the prison, come and see us. We're trying to set up trading arms from Cascade, so we've now just opened up a...
going to deliver them.
So Angela, you wrote a book on Wormwood Scrubs, which is one of the prisons that's going to benefit from some of this new support. I mean, with the prison population leaving prison with a reoffending rate of 70%, things have been going very wrong for a very, very long time. And we were obviously hearing from Jackie about the impact. So the money that we're seeing today then, 10 million for 10 prisons, is it going to do much to make much of a difference?
There are silly things in it, as there often are by governments who...
Back, but Mark, you were strongly indicating obviously that it's money actually in the end that's really going to help provide the sort of infrastructure and support that will mean that inmates like Carl will be able to turn their lives around.
Well, it's partly about resource.
Coming up, as tributes are being paid to Aretha Franklin, who died yesterday, we will speak to the singer Rowetta from the Happy Mondays. Now, Now, the average GP works for less than 3.5 days a week, according to new research from the University of Manchester. It suggests the stress of the job has become so intense that for many family doctors, working full-time is increasingly untenable. Separate findings by the King's Fund, which is an independent charity working to improve health and care in England, also shows that less than a quarter of new GPs are planning to be working in the role full-time within 1 year of completing their training. Patients groups say the rise in part-time GPs is terrifying given the national shortage and will lead to even longer waiting times for appointments. Well, we're joined by Becky Baird from the King's Fund, which carried out that research. Why it is that you're already trying to negotiate your hours down?
I think it's clear that we do have a workforce.
So you've been a doctor for 11 years, but you're switching to becoming a GP. Why is it that you've decided to do that in the first place?
So I was a
from the King's Fund. How concerning is this if people are switching out of hospitals because the hours are too long, and then actually being a GP is also the same?
Well, I think there's no...
How concerning is this if people are switching out of hospitals because the hours are too long, and then actually being a GP is also the same?
They might be working in out-of-hours services, in a pain clinic, in a hospice, or they might be teaching or working in research, and all of that to think about how that is going to affect the way general practice works in future.
Alan on email says, on the rare occasions I find myself needing a GP appointment, I'm usually informed by the receptionist that I'll have to wait a week to 10 days. It now appears from your report the reasons could be associated with GPs only working an average of 3.5 days a week. GPs are well paid and that should therefore provide a 5-day-a-week service to their patients. When someone becomes ill, it is not acceptable to be told they cannot get an appointment in a reasonable time. Is that why there are the problems? GPs not working enough time?
Hospitals and other bits of the health service has been going up faster than it has in primary care, despite work coming out of hospitals into primary care.
Sorry to interrupt. Are patients paying the price for GPs going part-time?
The health service that will really deliver the kind of care that patients need.
I want to find out then a bit more about the hours, how the hours could work out from our example here in the form of Sandesh. Are the hours that you're trying to negotiate working equivalent of 9 to 5, 5 days a week? How many medics are actually seeking to either move out or go part-time because of the pressures on the hours?
I think it's really hard to say from our research what the exact numbers are. I think increasingly that at the King's Fund, the solution is to think about how we can support GPs so they work in a less isolated way, that there are more staff around them working in a team way to help manage the demand, and definitely demand is increasing, although that we don't have a lot of data in general practice to really know what that demand is. We do know that GPs are under pressure and there must be different ways of meeting that, not just about more GPs but different ways of working.
Thank you both very much. Thank you. Now, we've been talking this morning about the extraordinary life and music of the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, who died yesterday at the age of 76. We can speak now to singer Rowetta, best known for her work with the band The Happy Mondays. Thank you very much for joining us, Rowetta. How will you remember Aretha Franklin?
Well, I just remember growing up, she was...
Well, how would you define her legacy?
Well, it's a natural talent, naturally gifted, and this is how little girls, this is what a real singer, a real musician is, a real woman. Thank you.
Thank you for your company today. Newsroom Live is coming up next, and we will leave you now with one of the soul legend Aretha Franklin's most famous songs. Bye-bye.